Check this out. There's a magazine some of you may know. Anybody out there read Harper's? They have this index on the first few pages, Harper's Index, where they have all these wild, mind-blowing facts, figures, and statistics. And I saw one that really made my eyes pop out of my head in the spring of 2002. It said, amount of our taxpayers' money our government spends every year guarding our oil supply in the Middle East. $50 billion. And this is before the Iraq War. Value of the crude from the Persian Gulf we actually consume in this country $19 billion. What's wrong with this picture? Especially when the whole time we were starving the Iraqi civilians to death and letting them die from diseases because of the sanctions we imposed and wouldn't even let medicine or even pencils in for some weird reason. The whole time we tried to bully the rest of the world into obey our sanctions that we arm-twisted the UN to put on Iraq. Don't buy Saddam's oil. We were buying 2/3 of Saddam's oil. And the only reason he could pump it out of the ground after we blew everything to smithereens in the Gulf War using more tonnage of bombs than in World War II. Only reason he could put the oil infrastructure back up was he paid $28 billion to a company from Texas called Halliburton. Rebuild all the wells, pipelines, ports, terminals. And Halliburton at the time was run by a guy named Dick Cheney. What I really think the cockeyed excuse for the first preemptive war in American history that blew our whole reputation as a bastion of freedom and peace once and for all in the eyes of the world, it really is the result of the curse of the Wolfman. Perhaps I should explain. In 1991, Daddy Bush, King George I, commissioned a Pentagon study called the National Security Guidelines. Its authors were Paul Wolfowitz, a chicken hawk, and another chicken hawk named Louis Libby, who goes by the nickname of Scooter. And Wolfman and Scooter came up with a report that was so far off the deep end, it said that now that a communist evil empire in the Soviet Union crashed and burned under the weight of its own bloated military spending, and there's no longer any nuclear threat, the world is a vastly more dangerous place. Because now we must treat all our allies as, quote, potential competitors who had to be prevented from, quote, aspiring to a greater regional or global role than we had in mind for them. And the report went on to say that American military invasions of other people's countries should be, quote, a constant feature of global affairs. Even Bush's father, who was no great lover of humanity or the common man, thought this was so insane he made them rewrite the whole thing. But unfortunately, he failed to protect our national security and lock Wolfman and Scooter in a padded cell and throw away the key. Because Wolfman became number 2 to Ronald Rumsfeld at the Defense Department and is widely considered to be the architect and prime mover of the whole disaster we now have in Iraq, just in time for him to resign from the Defense Department and parlay that into failing upward into being president of the World Bank, while Scooter, of course, became Dick Cheney's chief of staff until he was indicted for violating national security by outing the name of the CIA agent woman whose husband exposed that the African-Iraqi nuclear connection was a big lie. They did have one cheerleader for this scam back then. A general by the name of Colin Powell told Congress that he thought this was a great plan for the future, quote, I want to be the bully on the block. And then when Clinton got in, and people like Rumsfeld and Cheney and the Wolfman and Scooter and even Dan Quayle, among others, wound up at this group called Project for a New American Century, a so-called think tank where they were bombarding Clinton with all these memos and studies. You've got to invade Iraq right now. Getting rid of Saddam Hussein is more important than anything else in the whole world. Plus, you've got got to get rid of all the United Nations peacekeeping missions all over the world and replace all of them with American soldiers. Why? Well, we're the sole superpower now. It's about time we started acting like one. Rumsfeld even looks like that character in Pinky and the Brain who wants to take over the world.
Mile after mile.
And that was basically what they were saying. We should take over the world. And they said all it would take to get people behind this is, quote, a new Pearl Harbor. But now, every time we go into the Middle East, seems like we come to visit and decide to stay. We've got military bases all over the Persian Gulf states, big one in Saudi Arabia till they finally made us move it to Qatar, and then another one in Bahrain, more in the Emirates, another in Oman, and then we've got them in Afghanistan now, a lot of bases in Turkey, another one from the bottom of the Red Sea in a country called Djibouti, putting them up in Pakistan and Kyrgyzstan, several others. Why? Especially if that $19 billion of crude oil we consume from the Gulf is only between 10 and 20% of our total gluttonous oil consumption. Why, unless it is to cement in place the curse of the Wolfman? Hey, France. Hey, Germany. Hey, Japan. Hey, China. We don't absolutely have to have all that Persian Gulf crude, but we know that you do. Therefore, if you aspire to a greater regional or global role than we have in mind for you, better think twice, because we can turn the faucet off anytime we want. There goes the oil, so now we've got you and your economies by the nuts from now on. That is the curse of the Wolfman.
Like not bothering to open the schools again.